page Mem in my Friedlander's version. And for those who are using the paragraph version, we're still in Siman Memches 48. And the paragraph begins with the words V'nimtza shebe emes. Friedlander's caption is towards the bottom of the page. And Friedlander writes as follows as a summary of what we're about to learn. Midas hamishpat po'elas kefi ma'asenu. We're going to learn about the two hanhogas of the world. There are basic two ways that God runs, supervises, and administers the world. Now we know that we talk about the Yud Gimel Midas, and we've talked about that. The Yud Gimel Midas are not characteristic traits of God. We've gone that through many times. They are tools that God uses to administer the world. But he has a lot of tools that he uses to administer the world. But at the root of administration of the world, there are only two different ways that God administers the world. One is called Midas HaMishpat, and one is called really Midas HaYichud. Midas HaMishpat means that God is giving reward to those who deserve it and punishing those who Chas v'Shalom deserve that. That's Mishpat, that's pure judgment. So Friedlander writes, Midas HaMishpat po'elas kefi ma'asenu. When the Midas HaMishpat is administering the world, God is using the Midas HaMishpat to administer the world. He is using that Midah according to how we conduct our lives. Second parsha in Kriya Shema. V'oyim shema tishmu mitzvosai. If you listen to the mitzvahs, v'nasati mita'atzah v'nbita. I will give you rain and time, and you'll have plenty of shefa, and you'll have plenty of panos, and you'll be able to be an Oved Hashem with some ease. On the other hand, if you don't listen, then there won't be rain, and you go into exile, etc. So the way the world runs is, we always say, God runs the world. Yes, no question about that. God runs the world. He's the Echad Yachad Yuchad, but the way he runs the world are through midos that are based upon how we conduct ourselves. So if we conduct our lives in a certain way, God then almost quote unquote reacts and can conducts the world or your life in a certain fashion. So while God runs the world, he's running the world based on B'hoyim Shema Tishmo Mitzvosai. Will you listen? I will do this. Will you not listen? I will have to do this, etc. So that's the Midas HaMishpat. U'besocha po'elas Midas Tuva. And inside the Midas HaMishpat, percolating inside the Midas HaMishpat, whether it's Hashem sending a person reward, or Chas v'Shalom sending a person difficulties or challenges, inside, percolating and bubbling inside all of it is only to come to the shleimus, the perfection, and the good of the person and the good of the world. The world is going to come to its state of perfection, even if it's not based on our ma'asim. Which means that the Rebbeinu Shalom at any moment can decide, I want to bring the world to a state of perfection, even though mankind hasn't done the necessary work that he should do. This is what I want. It's all up to the will of God. God's not muhrak to do anything. So we talk about the world will expire at 6,000, but if man does the Gilui HaYichud earlier, Hashem will send Mashiach before then, etc. And what happens if we don't do the Gilui HaYichud earlier? Then God can send Mashiach earlier. Chas v'Shalom. The will of God may be that he wants to bring Mashiach even before we finish our work, even if it's not Kefi Ma'aseinu. Okay, let's see the Ramchal now. Therefore, we find that in truth, God has two particular midos with which he conducts and runs the affairs of the world. moiste oretz. And it is these two rules, these two concepts of supervision that God has set as the foundations to run the world. Aleph, number one, midas haschava onish, the midah of reward and punishment. Hi hanhagas hatov hara, b'shikol echel l'schus l'chova, v'nikras hanhaga hazos, v'nikras hanhaga zos, hanhagas hamishpat. And this is a balancing act. It's an act where you balance a person's merits versus his demerits, his chusim and his chayvos. And this manner of supervising the world is called Hanhagas HaMishpat, the supervision, the administration based upon judgment. Deserve, don't deserve. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Edan Kolo and Kula Lefi Maseyim HaTov V'Roim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges the world and each person according to their deeds, good or bad. V'as Yitoch Mishpato Zeh, but inside this form of supervision, which is mishpat, midas tuvai asher lefi chok shleimusai, inside there is percolating and bubbling the midah of toiv, the midah of yichud, the midah through which God wants to bring the world to perfection. As we learned yesterday, it doesn't make a difference what event you're talking about. God is going to use and is using every single event in the world, even if we can't understand them all now. He's using every event in the world to bring the world to perfection, even if the event in a vacuum looks like an imperfect event. It looks like we're going backwards. It's just because we do not have the full view of the full picture. We gave the example yesterday of Moshe Rabbeinu being thrown into the Nile and Amram giving a little patch to Miriam and telling her, the boy is lost. You told us that this boy was going to take the Jews out of Mitzrayim. He's now thrown into the Nile in a little basket. He's lost, finished. Where's your prophecy and how is it going to come about? So Mashal talks about the more insight, as we mentioned yesterday. What Amram didn't see was what the Ramchal is talking about. The example with Moshe Rabbeinu was an example that Rav Friedlander himself gives. And for those who want to take a look at it, he gives three examples. Okay, 1 second. Oh, here it is. Okay, so we'll read it today. It's right there. It's on our page. I thought we had read it already. The Rosh Hashanah uses every event. What Amram didn't understand was what the Ramchal is teaching us now as a Yesod. Moshe Rabbeinu was thrown into the Nile. That event is going to be used by the Rebbeinu Shalom. And because he's thrown into the Nile, Batia Bas Paro finds him. She brings him into the palace, and he's raised as a prince in the palace of Paro. The reason why Paro decreed that all boys should be thrown into the Yam was because his stargazers told him that a child's going to be born to the Jewish people, or according to one Medrash Rashi brings down, on a particular day, the stargazer said, today it's being born, the child that's going to take the Jews out of Mitzrayim. And Paro said, okay, everybody gets thrown, all boys get thrown into the Nile today. And then Yocheved, Moshe's mother, was able to save him for several months, etc. Story in Pasha Shemos. But the fact that Paro said, throw all the boys in the Yam, was to kill all the boys to make sure that the Jews would never leave Mitzrayim. So Moshe ends up in the Yam. And Amram thinks this is the end. This boy's not going to save us, as Miriam told me. But the reason he got thrown into the Yam was to save you. That's exactly why he got thrown into the Yam. So that Batia would take him, and he would grow up in Paro's palace, the very Paro who decreed throw the boys in the Yam so that nobody would take him out of Mitzrayim, and the person who's going to take him out of Mitzrayim is now in Paro's palace. So Rebbeinu Shalom is using every event, even though we only have this small little glimpse of the present. We don't understand the whole past and the whole future of how it fits together. Shalom is using every event to bring about Geulas Yisrael. And he's all using all events to perfect the imperfect world. Percolating, bubbling inside the Hanhagas HaMishpat, even where God sends a person challenges and difficulties, it's all percolating inside for the person's best, for the person's perfection. Lefi Inyam Amshalta, Shebekocho, who wrote so the Sakan is Kol Nevorah. Through this midah of Toiv, of Yichud, God wants to bring to perfection all of creation. We're on page Mem Aleph. According to the supervision of Schava Onesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is what we just spoke about, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol Meshabed Maisav L'Maisav B'nei Adam. God subjects his decision-making and supervision to what we do. God runs the world, but he runs the world based upon what we do. Ramchal says, Kaviyachol Meshabed Maisav L'Maisav B'nei Adam. God subjects what he does and how he conducts the world based upon what we do. If man conducts his affairs well and works on himself to be a better person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good with the person and is good with the creation. And if people conduct themselves in a bad way, the evil way, this is a difficult word here. Yuchrach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's forced, and Ramchal has already told us that God is not a mukha. We'll leave that being added for tomorrow. Kaviyachol Anisha. The result of man conducting himself in an evil way is that the Rebbeinu Shalom will have to send a person that which is Midas HaMishpat, Onesh. As the Pasuk in Tehillim says, Tenu Ois Lelekim. The Pasuk in Tehillim says, empower God. Tenu Tehillim, chapter 68, capital 68, verse 36. Tenu Oz Elokim. Give power to God. How can you even say such a thing, David HaMelech? How can you give God power? How do you empower God? So the Ramchal explains the Pasuk to mean, empower God to be able to do good. Remember at the beginning of the Sefer, the Ramchal said that in the system of creation, part of the tachlis of creation, remember we had the Tov, the Hatova, the Gilei Yichud, we discussed that, but part of the tachlis of creation is God wants to give good and benefit creation. And God's Tov, he's the perfect good, and perfect good wants to do good. So in order to do good, the Rebbeinu Shalom create a world that he can bestow his good on. So that's what he wants to do. That's his ratzon. So when we do good, it gives God the opportunity to do his will, which is to send us good. That's the new Oz Elokim. Give the power to God. Empower God to send you hashpah. Empower God to send you good. Because if you don't conduct yourself well, then God will not be able to send. Take out the word able. God will not send good. But he wants to send good. So empower God. Give God the power. Give him the opportunity to send you wonderful things. How do you give God the opportunity and the power to send you wonderful things? Conduct your life and your affairs properly. The opposite of this concept the Ramchal says is found in also a pasuk in Devarim. Tzur Yeladcha Teshi. It's a pasuk in Devarim, chapter 32, pasuk 18. Tzur Yeladcha, the rock who birthed you, meaning God, Teshi, you weakened him. What's Moshe Rabbeinu talking about in Parshas Hazinu? Tzur Yeladcha Teshi. How do you weaken God? This is the opposite of the coin, the other side of the coin. David HaMelech says until do Oz Elokim, empower him. And Moshe Rabbeinu says in Parshas Hazinu, Tzur Yeladcha Teshi. You have weakened God. How do you empower God? How do you weaken God? So David HaMelech says empower God means give him the power, give him the opportunity to do good, because he wants to do good. That's his ratzon. So give God the opportunities, the ability to do good for you by you being good. And it's the opposite of Tzur Yeladcha Teshi. If you conduct your affairs in a way that you shouldn't, then God is not able, take out the word able, God will not send hashpah to the person. And that, quote unquote, weakens God. It takes away his opportunity to fulfill his will to send good. So by us conducting our affairs well, the Rebbeinu Shalom has the opportunity and is empowered to send us hashpah as he wants to. When Chas v'Shalom we conduct our affairs the way we shouldn't, God doesn't have the opportunity to send us the hashpah that he wants to, and that's quote unquote called tzuri lod chateshi. And as Chazal tell us in a Medrash in Eicha, this man she Yisrael oisem etchana shalmakim. This is a Medrash in Eicha, Perek Aleph Eicha Pasuk Lamed Gimel. The Medrash there says, when Jewish people fulfill the will of God, v'shem etayvu mitzvahs, ma'asifin koyach begvura shalmayla, we add strength to the heavenly court. We add strength to the Rebbeinu Shalom. When Jews do not fulfill the will of God, they're not shayim etayvu mitzvahs chas v'shalom, matishin koyach shalmayla chas v'shalom. We weaken the power above. And this is the concept of the two psukim, David HaMelech, Tnu Ois Elikim, empower God, Yishem Etayva Mitzvahs, you live a life the way the Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to live it. You have now given God the opportunity and the power to send good to you, which is God's Ratzon. You've empowered God's Ratzon. Chashom, the opposite, Yisrael, Ein Oiser and Tzana Shalmakim. We don't live that kind of lifestyle. God wants to. He wants to. His Ratzon is to send Shefa and wonderful things to the Bria, to the person, and he will not, because of the Midas HaMishpah. And therefore, that's a weakening, quote unquote, of the opportunity to be able to do good for people. On the other hand, there's a new Ois Elikim, our Torah, our mitzvahs, our Gilui HaYichud empowers the Rebbeinu Shalom with the opportunity to send bracha and shefa to us and to the Bria. All those Yidden that need refuah should have refuah. All those Yidden that need Yeshua should have Yeshua. All the Yidden that need Nechamas should have Nechamas. Yeshua's refuahs Nechamas can only come from the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Echad Yochid Umiyuchad. And by understanding that and believing that, and allowing that to be absorbed into our minds and hearts, that's part of the Gilui HaYichud that brings Mashiach closer. Bringing Mashiach closer is bringing the third Beis HaMikdash closer, and the building of the Beis HaMikdash that we started in Masechta Midas, and the bringing of Karbanos that we're learning in Masechta Tamid, in Her Yameinu. And although God has many shluchim in the world, doctors, etc., the shluchim are shluchim, and the Refuahs Yeshua's Nechamas only come from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Everybody have a wonderful day. Please keep in mind age, health factors, when you're going outside, considering what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, the time you're going to do it. Everybody make sure you remain healthy and strong to continue building the Beis HaMikdash and continue learning about how to bring Karbanos in the Beis HaMikdash that's going to be built in Her Yameinu Mamish. Everybody have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.